The severed hand in the old backpack. A blood tragedy in Boudha, Nepal. Winter night. In Nepal, the temperature dropped close to 0 degrees. Thick fog covered the alleys around the Kathmandu valley. An old rental house, abandoned for months, suddenly lit up again. But instead of warm light, only a faint, flickering yellow glow shone from inside, as if about to go out. The first to notice something strange was Tenzin, a 12-year-old boy living across the street. On his way to buy coal with his father, he heard a strange sound from that house, steady knocking, as if someone were trying to pound the wall from inside. His father dismissed it, probably just a cat got inside. But as they passed by, a cold wind whistled through the crack of the door, carrying a foul, musty smell, identical to the stench of corpses they had once smelled at the cremation grounds by the Bagmati River. The next morning, George, the owner of the grocery store at the alley's entrance, decided to check. He was curious because for 46 days, no one had seen the tenant, a foreign man named Daniel Harper, 29, from England. Daniel had been reported missing more than a month earlier while trekking in the Himalayas. The police had opened a search case, but failed, and the file was gradually shelved. The iron door of the house was hard to open. The rusty hinges creaked. When George and a few neighbors pushed hard, they froze. Inside the pitch-dark room, thick curtains shut tight, a stench poured out. And right in the middle of the room, hanging from a wooden beam by a rusty wire, was an old hiking backpack, the same one police had described in Daniel's missing notice. George shone his flashlight. The sight inside the backpack nearly made him drop it. A severed human hand, clenched as if begging for help, with fingernails still caked with mud and strange dry grass. George's scream drew the whole neighborhood. Everyone was stunned. A human hand, intact, frozen stiff, had hung in the backpack for weeks. Police quickly arrived and sealed the scene. Inspector Arun Shrestha, an experienced investigator, stepped into the house under flickering flashlights. He realized the stench of death was far too strong for just a single hand. And indeed, when checking the utility cellar beneath the floor, they found piles of black plastic bags containing decomposed body parts. Part of a leg, a rib fragment, and a piece of belly skin with a blurred Sanskrit tattoo in blood. Arun sighed softly, chilled to the bone. This is not just a disappearance. This is a dismemberment. News spread instantly across Kathmandu. Daniel Harper, the tourist missing for 46 days, might have died in the rental house. But the bigger question that terrified the community was, who turned a disappearance into a bloody tragedy in the heart of Nepal's capital? The whole house was like a black hole swallowing light, and for 46 days, no one knew what had happened inside. Kathmandu, the capital of Nepal, is often remembered by tourists for the bright colors of prayer flags, the incense rising from ancient temples, and the narrow streets weaving through Durbar's old quarter. But behind that picture, the city also has shabby neighborhoods, cheap rentals, where many strangers stay before heading out to trek the Himalayas. The house where the backpack with the human hand was found is in Boudha district, less than a kilometer from the famous Boudhanath Stupa. It was an old lodging, rented short-term, often to tourists wanting to stay longer to save money. The landlady, a widow named Lokpa Sherpa, said that the tenant, Daniel Harper, showed up at the end of September. Daniel Harper, 29, a British national, was an amateur explorer and travel blogger. In his entry record, he listed his occupation as freelance photographer. He came to Nepal alone, carrying a camera, a large backpack, and a thick notebook. On his personal blog, Daniel once wrote, "I want to find myself again in the Himalayas." In a place where the wind blows so cold that no one hears a scream, I will know I am still alive. Daniel's family in London said he had some psychological instability after breaking up with his girlfriend, a journalist named Claire, but he had no history of violence, and those who met him in Kathmandu described him as a gentle young man, often smiling, somewhat reserved. Investigator Arun Shrestha paid special attention to the detail. Daniel disappeared on October 12th while preparing for a short trek in the Lungtang region. His friends at the hostel last saw him at 7 a.m., carrying a black backpack and a map. After that, complete silence. The rescue team searched for 2 weeks but found no trace. The missing file was temporarily closed, as all theories pointed to. He might have fallen into a ravine or lost his way. Yet now everything was overturned. Daniel's backpack appeared right in a house in the city, not on the mountain. And worse, the hand in the backpack and the body parts in the cellar all matched his DNA. Arun summoned the landlady, Mrs. Lokpar, for questioning. She trembled as she said, "He paid 1 month's rent, but then no one saw him. I thought he had gone trekking and never returned. I didn't dare check because the room was locked from the inside. But from October 15th, every night I saw faint light through the crack of the door, while the room key was still with me. I thought I was seeing things." Other witnesses in the neighborhood also told of eerie things over the past 46 days. At night, there were often sounds of heavy objects being dragged across the wooden floor. Sometimes there were whispers in a foreign language, but no one understood. Once, children kicked a ball against the ground floor window, and from inside, a bloody hand smeared the glass. The residents thought it was just a ghostly prank. No one dared knock to check, until the stench rose and the backpack was discovered. The main figure in this case, besides Daniel, was Inspektor Arun Shrestha himself. At 48, he had investigated many murders in Kathmandu, but rarely had he seen a disappearance turn into a dismemberment case right in the heart of the capital. Arun was known as tough, reserved, with the motto, "Every clue can speak if we are patient enough to listen." When he stood before the black plastic bags holding body parts, his eyes showed no anger, no panic, only cold focus. He knew for 46 days someone had lived in this house, together with Daniel's body, concealing all traces before vanishing. The case was no longer a missing tourist. It was a dark mystery, swallowing the small community, which once believed horrors only happen elsewhere. The morning after the scene was sealed, the lodging house in Boudha became the focus of Nepalese media. People crowded the alley, whispering, "Who could do this in such a crowded Kathmandu?" Inspector Arun Shrestha and the forensic team began combing through every detail in the house. And what they found made the case even more puzzling. 1. The traces in the rented room. On the small wooden table lay a leather notebook, the cover engraved with the silence of 46. Inside were scrawled English lines, signed Daniel, but the handwriting was completely different from his passport and papers. The content read like fragmented diary entries. Day 23. The light can't get in. I no longer know who I am. Day 31. He whispers every night, telling me I must stay. Day 46. No more light. I have no way out. On the wall, beneath peeling paint, were scratch marks so deep they tore into the wood. Under the fingernails of the severed hand found in the backpack were matching wood fragments. This showed Daniel had struggled, trying to escape. 2. The utility cellar beneath the floor, the black plastic bags were stacked neatly, not thrown randomly. Whoever did this had time and precision, not the actions of haste. On a femur fragment, Forensics found a very straight, smooth cut, as if made with a surgical knife, not an ordinary kitchen knife. 3. Key witness. A neighbor named Krämer said, "Around the end of October, I saw another white man going in and out of the house. Not Daniel. He was tall, wore a hood, heavy shoes. I thought he was a friend, so I didn't pay attention." Mrs. Lockpar, the landlady, after repeated questioning, admitted that a stranger had come to see Daniel on October 14th, claiming to be a trekking companion. But Daniel had disappeared on October 12th, so how could he have arranged a meeting? 4. Clue from the camera. This neighborhood had few cameras, but the investigation team found a blurry clip from a store near the market. On October 16th, exactly 4 days after Daniel disappeared, a large foreign man was seen pulling a black suitcase away from the house. The direction was toward Kathmandu bus station. The footage was too blurry to identify, but the suitcase matched the type Daniel once carried. 5. The main suspects. The mysterious friend. Through Daniel's passport and emails, police found the name of a German tourist, Jonas Krämer, who had messaged to meet him in Kathmandu. Jonas entered the country at the same time but departed 2 weeks later, reporting nothing unusual. The local trekking group. Daniel had once registered for a tour with local guides but cancelled at the last minute. One of the guides, Rayesh, had a record of assaulting tourists in money disputes. The foreigner seen near the lodging. Krämer's testimony suggested that someone else had used the house after Daniel vanished, and that person could be the real killer. Arun Shrestha pondered for a long time before the wall covered with charts. The clues were scattered, but they hinted at a dark picture. Daniel may not have died on the mountain, but was taken back to the lodging, enduring 46 horrific days before being dismembered. He noted 3 big questions needing answers. 1. Who really stayed in the house for 46 days? 2. Why was Daniel's body cut into many parts and hidden so carefully? 3. The diary, The Silence of 46, written by Daniel himself, or fabricated by someone else. In the pale neon light, Arun whispered, "This is not just a murder. This is a performance of death, staged meticulously by someone over 46 days without light." 3 days after the body was discovered, the Daniel Harper case seemed to have a clear direction. A foreign tourist murdered. The culprit, possibly the companion or one of the trekking guides. But everything suddenly shifted when the digital forensics team decrypted Daniel's old laptop hard drive, found in the lodging house. In the folder hidden _46, they discovered dozens of short videos, each only 30 to 40 seconds long. The images were blurry, but clearly showed the rented room, the very room where Daniel's body was found. In one video, Daniel sat leaning against the wall, his face gaunt, eyes sunken, whispering, "Someone locked the door. I'm not allowed outside," he says. "The light will kill me. I have no day or night. Only walls and the smell of rusted iron." In another video, marked day 30, Daniel wrote on paper, "I hear footsteps on the ceiling. They are not mine." Inspector Arun watched each frame. He realized Daniel had not been imprisoned alone. In the corner of the screen, a tall, shadowy figure sometimes appeared, passing quickly. The face unclear, but certainly not Daniel. This was the first shock. Daniel had been kept alive, imprisoned in the very lodging house, for weeks before being murdered. Meanwhile, the forensic team also released a new report. In the stomach of the recovered body parts, traces of dried tea leaves and a rare mushroom that only grows in the Langtang region were found. This proved Daniel did not die immediately but had been fed regularly. Death had not come instantly. He was held, weakened, then killed. Arun struck his pen hard on the table. Not murder for robbery. This is prolonged torture. A living experiment. The situation grew even more horrific when police found strange fingerprints in the house. Neither Daniel's nor the landlady's, nor any witnesses. The comparison shockingly matched an old 2019 file, that of an internationally wanted fugitive named Jonas Krämer, a German. Jonas was once a medical student, later dropped out, accused in an assault case on a patient in Berlin. Records noted he was obsessed with darkness and once wrote a bizarre thesis titled "The Silence Therapy: The Psychological Power When Humans Are Deprived of Light." Nepalese police had never paid attention to Jonas since he entered and exited legally. But now, all the details matched. He had contacted Daniel, had been seen around the lodging, and his fingerprints were present at the scene. Arun summoned the investigation team urgently. He drew a red circle around the name Jonas Krämer and said, "We are not just hunting a killer. We are hunting a psychopath who turned a victim into a lab rat. 46 days without light. That is the experiment he named." The twist shocked all of Nepal. The press reported widely, Daniel Harper's disappearance was not a trekking accident, but a ritual of mad scientific torture, deliberately staged. Daniel's family in England collapsed upon hearing the news. His mother could only cry out in front of the camera, "My son is not an experiment. Who gave him the right to do this?" At that moment, a new detail emerged. In the final video, Daniel lay on the floor, breathing heavily. Behind him, the shadowy figure spoke in a deep, hoarse voice in German. "Tonight will end. You have given me the data I need." After those words, the video suddenly cut off. That meant Daniel knew he was about to die, and Jonas, if it was him, treated it as part of the research. Arun closed his eyes, feeling his neck turn icy cold. This was no longer an ordinary case. This was the game of someone who saw human lives as numbers in a laboratory. The investigation completely shifted once the name Jonas Krämer came to light. Inspector Arun Shrestha and the international intelligence team began reviewing his entire journey from Europe to Asia. Travel records showed Jonas entered Nepal in May 2024 on a 3-month tourist visa, declaring himself an independent researcher on environmental impacts on human psychology and physiology. He rented multiple cheap lodgings around the Kathmandu Valley, always paying in cash and using false identities. The key point: he had purchased medical supplies on the dark web, restraints, infrared lamps, sedatives, and mini-infrared cameras. All matched what was found in Daniel's confinement room. Meanwhile, the forensic team decrypted more data from Daniel's laptop. Some files were not just video diaries, but written notes forced upon him, dictated by Jonas. The content made anyone's spine go cold. Day 12, without light. I start hearing echoes in my head. Jonas says it is a normal hallucination. He says, "You are proof that humans are weaker than darkness." Day 24. I was fed thin porridge, tasting of bitter medicine. I no longer have a sense of time. Jonas says I have entered the loss of reality stage. Day 41. I begged him to end it. He laughed, saying, "Just a few more days. You will give me the final answer." These words revealed a horrifying truth. Daniel was not only imprisoned, he was turned into a subject of a grotesque psychological experiment. A source from Interpol also confirmed Jonas had been suspected in 2 disappearances in Germany and Austria in 2020, but due to lack of evidence, he vanished from Europe. Both victims were young students, also disappearing for more than 40 days before their bodies were found in an emaciated state. The common pattern made Arun even more certain. 46 days without light was no coincidence. It was the experimental cycle Jonas imposed on his prey. Yet, the truth was still incomplete. Experts concluded Daniel did not die immediately after falling. Some tissue fragments showed post-mortem injuries, meaning Jonas either handled the body to erase evidence, or worse, to complete his sick data. Arun said at the emergency meeting, "We don't just have a murder. This is a chain of cross-border homicidal research. And Daniel Harper is only one victim on the list." He pointed to Jonas Krämer's photo, eyes cold. "This man must be caught at all costs. Otherwise, there will be another 46 days, more lives lost." Public opinion in Nepal erupted. The press called it the devil's experiment. Daniel's family in England hired international lawyers, demanding Jonas be prosecuted for crimes against humanity. Social media spread the hashtag Justice for Daniel, turning the case into a global spotlight. But the partially revealed truth only deepened the horror in the recovered data. Besides Daniel's videos, there was a file named next_targets.txt. It listed 3 other names, all young tourists who had checked into Nepal in 2024. 2 of them were still missing. Arun closed the file, his heart heavy. He knew the case was not over. Daniel Harper was only part of a nightmare still unfolding. And Jonas Krämer, the man who turned science into a killing blade, was still out there, perhaps already preparing for the next 46 days. Just as the investigation seemed close to ending, a new shock hit. On December 14, 2024, Nepalese police received an anonymous envelope sent directly to Inspektor Arun Shrestha's office. Inside was a black USB stick, crudely labeled End of Day 46. When the digital team decrypted it, the screen showed a video. The footage was shaky, shot inside a pitch-dark room. The cameraman was Jonas Krämer himself, his face clear, no disguise, his eyes gleaming cold like glass. He spoke in English, voice steady and clear. "You have found Daniel. Good. But he was not the first victim, and certainly not the last. This experiment cannot stop, because it is not mine alone. It already has a sponsor." Right after those words, the video cut to a trembling hand lifted up, the arm thin and frail, fingernails broken. A female voice, almost only a breath. "Please, save me." 46 days. The investigation team was stunned. No one knew who the girl was, but clearly Jonas was holding another victim, and she was still alive when the video was recorded. The second shock came when analyzing the file metadata. The video was created on December 10th, only 4 days before the envelope was sent, and the hidden IP location in the data was right on the outskirts of Kathmandu. Jonas had not left Nepal. Arun slammed his fist on the table. "He is challenging us. He has turned the entire capital into a stage for this devil's experiment." The investigation team expanded the tracking scope. They reviewed rental apartments around Kathmandu, places with basements or storage rooms suitable for keeping someone 46 days in darkness. Notably, an abandoned warehouse in Boudha, 213 kilometers from the capital, had once been rented short-term by Jonas in June. The assault team was deployed. They entered the warehouse at midnight under the cold beam of flashlights. But inside, there was no victim, no Jonas. Only a small room built of temporary wood, its walls draped in black cloth, and a digital clock hanging on the wall, counting down from 46 to 0. Current display, day 23. The whole team froze. This meant a new victim had been held for 23 days already, and only 23 more days remained before the experiment was completed. Meanwhile, another clue suddenly emerged. A financial report from Interpol showed Jonas received multiple anonymous transfers via cryptocurrency. The sender used the codename Aurum Foundation, a so-called scientific research charity once suspected of laundering money for an international organ trafficking ring. Arun was stunned. Jonas was not just a lone madman. He was a tool in a larger network where Daniel's death was only data for those behind the curtain. The peak of the second twist came when the forensic team found another detail in Daniel's backpack, previously overlooked. Beneath torn fabric, they discovered a small piece of paper, scrawled in pencil. He said, "I am number 5. If I am number 5, then how many came before me?" The entire meeting room fell silent. The number 5 made everything more terrifying, at least for victims before Daniel, and the true number could be even higher. Arun thought to himself, 46 days without light, that is only the frame, but what he built is a death assembly line. Maps of Kathmandu and its surroundings were spread across the table. Suspicious locations were marked in red. The countdown clock in the warehouse now became the haunting timeline for the entire investigation team. If Jonas was not found within the next 23 days, there would be another Daniel, another tragedy, and the 46-day cycle would repeat. And now, Arun had to face a truth even more horrifying than Daniel Harper's death. An entire network behind Jonas Krämer was nurturing this experiment as a global project. On January 3rd, 2025, with only 2 days left on the countdown clock in the abandoned warehouse, an anonymous call was patched directly to Inspektor Arun Shrestha's number. The man's voice was deep, hoarse, deliberately distorted through a filter. "You're looking in the wrong place. The experiment isn't in that warehouse. It's where light has never reached." Then the call ended. At the same time, Interpol sent a new report. A satellite phone signal belonging to Jonas had been briefly detected in the Shivapuri Mountains, only 12 kilometers from Kathmandu. At the foot of the mountain was an abandoned tunnel system from the Civil War era, once used as shelters. The special forces were immediately deployed. In the thick darkness of the tunnels, they found a heavy iron door, chained shut from the outside. When they broke it open, what they faced left the entire team frozen. A concrete room, no windows, 4 walls covered in soot and moss. In the corner sat a young, thin woman tied to a chair. Her eyes were shut tight, lips cracked and dry, her whole body reeking of someone locked up too long. On the wall, scrawled in dried blood, were the words, "Day 44. The victim was rescued in critical condition but alive." Her name was Meera, 29, a graduate student from India, missing for nearly a month. But Jonas was not there. Only a laptop was on, its screen showing white text on a black background. "You have saved number 6. But the project does not end in Nepal. It has only just begun." Beneath the text was the emblem of the Aurum Foundation, the organization the investigators had found in financial transactions. Arun clenched his fists, knowing Jonas was only a pawn. The real network was still out there on a far larger scale. 3 days later, when Meera had recovered, she recounted in tears. "He told me I had to endure 46 days without light to know what remains of a person when darkness swallows everything. He said I would become living proof. I don't know how many came before me, but I heard them screaming at night from other rooms." Meera's testimony made the investigators even more certain. Daniel Harper was only one of many victims. People unlucky enough to be turned into numbers in a deranged diary. In February 2025, a special court in Kathmandu declared Jonas Krämer was internationally wanted for serial murder, kidnapping, and systematic torture. The entire 46 days without light file was made public as a global warning. But Jonas remained missing. Only strange emails arrived in Interpol's inbox with a brief message. Do not extinguish the light. Let the darkness teach you how to survive. A month later, in Germany, Jonas's homeland, the press reported a mysterious missing woman. Her apartment was abandoned, the living room light still on. On the table lay a single piece of paper. Day 1. Inspector Arun looked out the window of his office in Kathmandu. The afternoon sun stretched across the Himalayas. But in his heart weighed one question. Was the world entering an era where darkness was turned into a weapon by men? He remembered Mira whispering in the hospital. When, in darkness, I realized the scariest thing was not death. It was silence. The silence of society, the silence of those who know but turn away. Final message. 46 days without light was not just a sick experiment in a closed room. It was a metaphor for human silence and indifference toward evil. For when we close our eyes and turn away, darkness will keep swallowing one person, one fate at a time, until no one sees the light again.